Well, hello, folks. We've had a few sessions on economics already, and we've talked about what exactly economics is all about. We studied that if there are life sciences, economics is a science of life. It's about how people engage in the quest for satisfaction. And in the process of satisfaction or achieving satisfaction, how do they optimally and rationally allocate, administer, and utilize their resources, which are scarce and have alternate uses? So this decision of resource allocation can be taken subjectively in different roles as a consumer, as a producer, and even as a representative of a government or any stakeholder of the economy. So we talked about the circular flow model, and we talked about how the different entities in an economy, right from the households to the firms, and then the governments, the financial system and the foreign sector, all collectively in an open economy interact with one another in the process of optimal allocation of their resources, and how the real and the monetary circular flow happens in the economy. We would today be talking about a few important topics that we've already covered, but then we'll try to take it as a quick revision. The first and the most foremost important topic that we'll do today is the central problems of an economy. So we would try to understand what these central problems of an economy are. And just a moment. So let's start with the central problems of an economy. Now, what are the central problems of an economy? In economics, we talk about the central problems from two perspectives. One is from the perspective of the entire economy. If a country wishes to utilize all its available resources into production of several goods and services, it will have to rationally think about where these resources should be allocated. On one hand, you have a concern for welfare. You have a concern for meeting the subsistence need of the people. You have a requirement for meeting the food security requirements of a country. And on the other hand, you might have to invest a lot on the defense equipments. You might have to invest a lot on the security and the defense mechanisms of a country. And then in between, you might also have different products which are related to, maybe there could be a mix of comforts and luxuries. So there are several products ranging from different perspectives and objectives that a country might have to produce. So how does a country really allocate the resources, which you call as budgeting, into different sectors of the economy, from primary sector to secondary to tertiary to quaternary and so on? Similarly, these problems of resource allocation can also be for a firm. Even a firm needs to identify certain answers to questions like what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. So we talk about these central problems. The first we say is what to produce. What to produce. The second question is how to produce. And the third question we talk about, or what the organization or economy is confronted with, is for whom to produce. Now, we would just quickly try to delve into the whole idea and understand what it really means. So let's take the case of a firm. And a firm or anyone who wishes to run an entrepreneurial system or run a business, there would be these three common questions that you would be confronted with. So what to produce primarily talks about what is it that you would produce in the sense that what are the products that will have a valid demand in the market. So it's about demand analysis. It's about understanding the consumer behavior, understanding what is the utility or the product that the consumers are seeking in the market, and deciding which product to make. So when we talk about what to produce or choosing the right product that we wish to make, we would also implicitly answer a few questions. Let's say if I wish to produce a pen or a car, then what sort of pen am I planning to produce? Am I planning to produce an economy, a cheap use and throw pen? Am I planning to make a pen which is probably going to be a reusable pen? Is it going to be a low-priced edition? Is it going to be a designer pen at a higher cost? Or is it going to be an extremely luxury pen like Montblanc or Cartier? So the idea is to understand what nature of product are you planning to make, and is there a demand for that product in the market? And when we talk about what to produce, we address these two questions as to what product do you wish to make and in what quantities, which means understanding the nature of the product, the size of of the market segment or the target market, and a tentative price at which you would like to probably sell that product, and how many people would actually buy it. So that would give you an idea about what should be produced and how should be produced, and in what quantities. So what to produce also indirectly covers the question of how much to produce, or in what quantity do you wish to produce the product. So if I give you a tentative idea, if Tata wishes to make a car for ₹1,00,000, that was the idea behind Nano, understanding which target or which market segment or target market would buy those products, using market research or a fuzzy logic, understanding how many people would buy that, and all that is subjective to obviously a tentative price point that you keep in mind. And based on that nature of the product, whether it's a necessity, whether it's a comfort or a luxury, which segment of the market you are catering, you decide to produce a product. And this is actually answering the question of, to be very honest, that what is it that the people will desire to buy, and this is called, there should be acceptability for the product in the market. So acceptability or study of consumer behavior. So I'll talk about these in detail subsequently. Now, when we talk about how to produce, we are dealing with the second set of questions, that how do we arrive at producing the product which we have conceived earlier, and the nature of the product depending upon the necessity or a comfort or a luxury it is, or what segment of market will it cater to, and in what quantities do we wish to produce. We would have to understand the choice of techniques which you need to deploy in order to produce those goods and services. You may use a capital intensive technique if you want to produce at a very large scale. You might even use capital intensive techniques or a high-end technology to produce superior products. But on the other hand, there could be a lot of products which may be considered to be superior in a market, in a developed market, if they were handmade. So using the choice of techniques, depending upon how much do you wish to produce, and what level of expenditure can you afford to do. If you're producing a luxury car, the choice of techniques would depend on getting the finest of the resources and producing those products in limited quantities. While if it is a cost-effective product that you wish to make and cater to a larger size of market, you might again require technology to do large-scale productions, but at the same time reduce your your cost of production by using economies of scale. So the choice of technique, or whether it is going to be a more labor-intensive technique to produce those products and services. So how to produce generally deals with this problem, and it also tries to ensure that you are able to achieve a desired output. That means maximizing your output at the same time trying to minimize your cost. Now, cost minimization does not mean that we are trying to make every product cheap, but within the budget that we wish to produce. Even a luxury product would have a threshold or a budget within which the product needs to be produced. And if it's an economy product or a cheaper product, you would look for a technique which would involve the minimum possible cost of production. So choice of techniques would actually talk about how to optimize or maximize your output, and how probably to control your costs. So it deals with the problem. If we see it, it's actually talking about the concern related to affordability. Now, when I say affordability, as I said, it doesn't mean making a product cheaper, but it deals with the idea of being able to produce the product within the target cost, considering the price point at which you wish to sell your product in the market. Then comes the third question, and it talks about for whom to produce. Now, for whom to produce, in one sense, can be understood as the target market. That means what is the actual market that you wish to make it for. But since this question was in a way addressed in the first question, where we were trying to understand for which market segment, it actually means trying to identify or at least reach out to your potential target customers. So there must have been a target market that you must have conceived out of your research, or out of the fuzzy logic, or out of your market research that you might have conducted about the product. But now identifying where those customers or where the target market is, how to reach out to them, how to make them aware about the product, and how to reach out to your customers, make the product available through logistics, supply chain, and distribution, and at the same time ensuring that depending on the nature of the market, you finally price your product at the right point. So all these concerns related to the market, reaching out to the target market, and making the product available are dealt in this question of for whom to produce. That means reaching out to the potential customers. So how do you reach out to your potential target market or customers? And this would involve a lot of things, right from creating, I would say, awareness about the product. So that would include awareness, and at the same time, availability. So these are the four important aspects. If you see, the four A's, as we call in marketing. So as I said, that most of the subjects or the advanced concepts of management would be built on a foundation of economics. And if you have a strong foundation of economics, you would have a better understanding and be in a position to apply management principles in a much better way. So what to produce addresses the concern of understanding the demand side, understanding the consumer behavior. So on the other hand, let me write this. What to produce deals with consumer behavior or demand analysis, consumer behavior or demand analysis. While when we are talking about how to produce, we are talking about the producer's behavior, the production side of it, the producer behavior, right? Or we are talking about the production and cost analysis. That means you're trying to optimize your production, obviously depending on the kind of products you're making. But if you're making a superior product, then how do you get the best of the raw material, the best of the techniques, and make a highly superior product, even if it is at a higher price point? But on the other hand, if you're trying to make an economy product, how do you bring the right raw materials, make the process much more cheaper, and ensure that you are able to enjoy a large scale economies in your cost? So production and cost analysis decisions, the decisions related to break even, the decisions related to, how would you produce, at what, how would you control your costs, optimize your production behavior. At the same time, what is probably the size of production you would need to cover up your the fixed costs, and which is all that you would study in the break-even analysis and a lot of other topics. And then the third question is about the markets, the external aspect. That is, once the product is ready and once it has been designed within the target cost to be sold at a target price for the right market, how do you reach out to your target customers? And this is what generally I said, though we talk about the problem related to awareness and availability, it is more related to the market, and so we call it the market side of it, or I may call it the market behavior and market related behavior of the firm, wherein you're trying to deal with obviously the awareness aspect, which is also called the promotion, the marketing, the branding, availability, which is the problem of distribution, supply chain, logistics, and everything. And then obviously identifying what is the equilibrium, what is probably the equilibrium price that you would charge based on the nature of the competition in the market. So how much is the competition? What is the nature of the market? Are you the only player? Are you a monopolist? Is it a very cutthroat competition within a few players, or an oligopoly kind of market? Or is it a monopolistic system wherein there are large players with differentiated products? Or is it a pure perfect competition where product is just similar as others? So these factors will determine where would you price your product. So if you actually see all these decisions related to demand, production, cost, and lastly pricing and reaching out to the target, pricing, advertising, and a lot of other factors, these will be covered in subsequent topics or units of economics under the chapters of demand, production, cost, market structures, and so on. So lastly, if we talk about it, let's say that the first question gave you an idea about the tentative price at which you are trying to see the demand for your product. See, nobody can tell you whether they'll buy your product or not, even if you do a survey, unless they know the features and the tentative price you're going to charge them. So that's probably the tentative price at which you decide to produce a product having a certain demand in the market. And we've already discussed that demand is not just the willingness, but an effective desire, which means willingness backed with an ability or purchasing power to buy the product. So once we have identified this, the second question helps you produce your product at a cost which is much lower, or when I say much lower, relatively lower than the price at which you intend to sell the product. Now, this may happen in the short run, or this may be achieved in the long run, but you would have to keep your costs much lower than the price at which you wish to offer. Even if it's a economy product or a luxury product, there would be a certain threshold cost that you would have to, or the ballpark cost figure that you would try to control yourself or restricted yourself in. Now, the third question, if we see, is all about that the fact that you kept a price in mind, you produced within that limit, but by the time you were able to produce the product, there was some gestation. You actually brought your product to the market. The market dynamics might have changed. You will have to see whether there are other players along with you in the market. If there are other players in the market, there would be a lot of questions. Should I keep the price at the initial price that I was thinking of placing it at? Or should I keep my cost lesser than that? Or should I keep it much lower and very close to my cost of operation? All these decisions will depend on the nature of competition in the market. There could be a lot of things related to the concerns. Whether you keep the price low, people might think it to be an inferior product. If you try to keep a product's price high, some of them might take it as superior, but then at the same time, there might be other brands which are more competitive and might sell their product at a lesser price point. So whether you differentiate your product and keep the price high, or you try to keep your product similar and keep the price level with competitors, or you try to keep the price lower, where do you fit your price within these two limits is the answer related to the third question, that how do you identify an equilibrium price for your product depending on the level of competition in the market. So the price fundamentally, if you see, depends on three factors. It depends on customer, cost, and competition. These are three C's which are easy for you to remember. It's actually, when we say price depends on the product, the value that you are creating, the utility that lies in the product, but also in the intensity of desire of the customer. So it's the customer who has to be kept in mind while designing a product, and that's the first factor that determines the price that you may charge depending on the nature of customer you are targeting. The second is the cost of operation. Your cost of operation fundamentally affects the price of the product. If the cost of production is high, there are strong chances that the price of the product would be higher. And lower the cost, you may be able to price your products much cheaper than others. And in order to keep the cost low, it does not always mean making the product cheap or low quality, but it means that how do you design techniques which are more optimized, or you try to enjoy high scale economies of scale. And the third is competition. Competition determines, again, the level at which you will be able to price your product. For example, if there's a greater competition, you might have to advertise, differentiate your product, bring in certain innovations which might add on to the cost and which might also lead to a higher price. Sometimes, in order to sell a product very similar to others, you might have to compete not on increasing the cost, but at reducing the average cost by producing at a larger scale, and you might try to lower the price in order to deal with competition of similar kind of products. So depending on the market structure, you would probably be deciding on the price and the advertising budgets and stuff like that. So price primarily depends on three factors: the customers, the cost, and the competition. Now, moving ahead, if we move ahead from here, we would also try to just quickly understand a bit of the concepts of marketing that evolve out of this whole idea. So if you remember, I talked about the 4 A's: acceptability, affordability, awareness, and availability. Let's just quickly come to these 4 A's. And if you see these questions, these 3 important questions of what, how, and for whom to produce have actually led to understanding of 4 important A's. And the first we call as the acceptability. Produce what you think will have utility in the eyes of the customers and what will be acceptable to the customers at large, which means creating value and creating products that probably will find value for some segment of the customers in the market. The second was affordability, which meant that, as I said, it didn't mean that the product has to be cheap, but within the affordable price points, at which a product is targeted. If you're planning to buy an economy car, then it should be within the target price. If you're buying mid-segment car, it should be within that same price. If you're trying to buy a luxury car, then what's the price? If you wish to buy a car worth having a budget of 1 crore rupees, then obviously it has to be within that limit. You would not be keen on buying a 1.5 crore rupee car. So all those factors have to be seen as to within what price point and the nature of the commodity in the target market, how do you produce a product that it stays affordable to the target customers. The third was awareness. Awareness is an important factor. There are many a times good products which may not be able to really be encashed or enjoy those kind of sales because of lack of promotion or the right kind of awareness. And then the fourth factor is availability, and this is a big factor you would understand, which makes supply chain and logistics a very important, sales and distribution a very important factor. Many a times there were good products you might have come across when e-commerce probably was not evolved to that level, and you did not have Amazon, Flipkart and other e-commerce sites performing the level they've been performing today. So many a times you have to compromise on the purchase decisions of a lot of products which you wish to buy, but they were not available in the local market. So how do you make the product available using online, offline techniques or blended techniques, or how do you make the product available in terms of whether you have your online retail stores, offline retail stores, exclusive outlets, multi-brand outlets? How do you really make the product available through the logistics, supply chain and distribution processes? So these are considered to be the 4 A's. And I think for any product to be successful in terms of marketing, if I talk from the marketing perspective, it may not be an easy question to answer that what makes a product successful, because there are several things that come into the decision making, into the picture of making a product successful. But I think the 4 fundamental bases of making a product successful come from the idea of economics, which says a product should be acceptable, it should be affordable, it should be there should be awareness about the product, and it should be available at the right time and at the right place. So this further evolved into the 4 P's, if you remember, which talks about the marketing mix. If you remember the concept of marketing mix, it also somewhere comes into picture with the idea of these 3 questions or the 4 A's that we talked about. So acceptability, if we talk about acceptability, it is very closely related to the product and the features that it has. So the product should have value, utility for the customers. And we've already discussed about a lot of things about utility, that what exactly utility is as a concept, and how does it talk about the value in use and value in exchange, and at the same time how the value in use or the utility of the product depends on the features of the product, the integral aspects of the product, and also the intensity of desire of the customer. So we primarily, when we are talking about acceptability, we are talking about the product here. And then product, its value, its features, its utility for the customers. The second is affordability. And if you look at it, affordability deals with the concept of price. How do you price a product that it appears to be affordable? Now, affordability has different connotations. Amway sells a highly premium product in its own segment, but it always claims that when you look at the quality of the product and when you use it over a period of time, it turns out to be much more economical than a cheaper product that you buy in the market. You might be buying a concentrate solution which you might dilute and use, and it turns out to be much cheaper and long lasting, or maybe for a longer period of time can be used, and it may turn out to be less expensive than it appears to be. So different firms may have their own concepts about pricing, whether they're selling a cheaper product, whether they're selling a superior product at a higher price, or they're really giving you value for your money. And then if we talk about awareness, awareness talks about the 3rd P of marketing, which we call normally as promotion. So how do you promote your product? How do you use marketing communications, advertising, sales promotion, and a lot of other techniques like PR skills, propaganda, and how do you really position the product in the minds of your customers? If Apple positions its product as a highly innovative product in the minds of people, how does it do that? If 3M positions itself as a highly innovative company bringing products for which you normally don't find many alternatives, then how do they manage to do that? And how do they position themselves into the minds of the customers is very important. And every brand, every company, and even countries, if you see, position themselves in some way or the other. Japan for a long time positioned itself for technology. If you look at the cars, we look at the German cars, known for their engineering prowess, for their design, for their elegance. We talk about the Japanese cars. It always talked about the long-lasting cars that they made. The cars were safer. The cars were, pretty. I would say, because of the Japanese culture, they were pretty well accepted across the world for their long-lasting, lifespan. When you talk about the American cars, you talked about driving reliability, you talked about the safety aspects. When you talked about the Korean cars, it was value for money, cheaper cars, and at the same time talking about feature-rich cars meant for the developing countries. So every company probably tries to position itself. Every country also in a way has been trying to position their products in a very different manner. And then within the cars also you might have those options of every company positioning itself. For example, if we talk about any three luxury brands together, BMW, Audi and Mercedes, you might see that the BMW, despite of having equally good looking cars, they might probably be positioning themselves primarily as speed machines. While you look at the Audis and similar European cars talking about the design and elegance, and when you talk about the Mercedes, it talks about the driving reliability. So each of those brands would also try to lure their own specific set of customers, because they are all fighting in the same segment based on the positioning of their product in the minds of the customers. And so that's probably for the time being. And then we talk about the fourth factor, which is availability, which is the fourth P of the marketing mix, and which is what we normally call as placement. So earlier we used to call it place, but place is just restricted to maybe online and offline and the place we are selling it. But how is it placed in the market? There are a lot of companies which design very interesting ways. I've been talking about brands like Google, brands like OnePlus, who tried very different placement strategies. Google, when it launched its email service, emails were normally free from Yahoo, MSN, Hotmail, and various other brands. And so they created a kind of craving for the product by making it a limited edition sort of thing. It was restricted to a few licenses. People could open their accounts, and then people had to refer other people in order to get them an opportunity to open their email accounts. Or OnePlus had this option of people sending invites to three of their acquaintances, and only those people were given a chance to buy a OnePlus phone when it was launched in the market. So these were strategies by which firms tried to create probably a different placement in the market, a craving for the product. And then the products were available only online using flash sales and a lot of other such techniques, while there could be alternate brands selling in physical markets. If you talk about Chinese brands like Oppo, Vivo on one hand and MI on the other, the way they forayed into India was very different. So the MI was selling phones online, trying to reduce their, the cost of, having online retail stores, outdoor promotions, and they tried to save down on the cost and give value to the customers using only digital marketing as one of the ways. While on the other hand, you had the Vivo and the Oppos, which understood the Indian style of outdoor promotions. They had outdoors, all stocked up with their advertisements. They were sponsoring events. They had their products available in every retail store, and service centers were promised all around in the cities. So both the companies had their own placement strategies in order to sell their products, and different target markets were catered by different brands over this through this time. So a good product or a good brand needs to build an entire marketing mix through a very, very thorough research about their target market, and the nice marriage between the product and the needs of the customers in the target market leads to the success of a product. I've been often talking about examples of brands like Apple, which shows that despite being let's say an iPhone, despite being a phone that probably may make a lot of logic to one segment of the customers, buying an iPhone may be real worth the price it is for many. Others may think it's a highly overpriced product lacking the features and the specifications that you might get at a much lesser price in an Android ecosystem with greater flexibility, greater ease of usage, and various other reasons. So good brands may also polarize, right? You may create lovers and haters, and what does it show is that each product has its own target market. But the good part of Apple is that it has been able to identify its product price, place, promotion mix very well. And depending on the nature of the product, the target market, they have built their product all around it. And not trying to give everything that every customer wants, but trying to understand the target market, and at the same time understanding what is to be done, what is to be accepted, and what is not to be accepted or not to be done, because it can be detrimental in the longer interest of the company. So these kind of decisions are what we'll study in detail in subjects like marketing and various other subjects. Now, these 4 Ps, if you see, further developed into the 4 Cs, and I'll cut it here because we'll not deviate much from economics as of now. But if I talk about this 4 Cs, it was further a development on the existing idea of product, price, place, promotion to moving from product to consumer. So understanding what the customer or the consumer or the customer wishes to buy. And the orientation changed from obsession about the product to understanding the customer, which was the concept of marketing myopia, if you understand that. The firms were mostly obsessed about what they were selling or the product they were selling and mistaking it to be the purpose of the company or the value that they were creating. So it is very important to understand what is the value that you're offering, and that to the customer, the consumer that you are catering to, rather than just being very myopic about the product that you're offering. The second is called in place of the price, there came a concept of cost to the customer. So you may be trying to prepare a product or develop a product at a certain price point, but it's not necessary that it may cost the customer exactly what the price is. There are a lot of hidden costs. There are a lot of other things which might come into play. I give an example. Let's say if you open a restaurant or a shop at a very busy location of the city, which might be very, very easily accessible in terms of being in the heart, but you don't have a parking space. So the price, even if it turns out to be, you might be selling products cheaper to customers or giving them various options to buy their products at convenience, it does not turn out to be much cheaper to them because they have to bear a certain cost of parking their cars at a distance, and may also cause them a lot of convenience issues. So all these factors also are very important. So what is the cost to customer is more important than the price that you are charging, and firms need to factor in the cost to the customer rather than the price alone as a factor. Promotion talks about, on the other hand, the newer term called communication, and today we talk about marketing communications or corporate communications, because promotion is a one-sided strategy where the firm just keeps talking about the good aspects about its products. But today the world wants you to be more accountable, more reliable, and a two-way communication is very important. That's where digital marketing, social media plays a very important role in bringing a two-way communication between the firms and the consumers, and even the other marketers and evangelizers in the market. And then comes the placement. Placement is replaced with a term called convenience. Convenience. So today we are not talking about online or offline alone, or we are not talking about where is the product made available, but it's more important to understand what is more convenient to the customer. I mean, a few decades back, if we talk about, it was unimaginable that instead of going to the market, if you have a product delivered at your doorstep by an e-commerce company with a lot of choices, options, and you would still have to pay a lesser price than what you would pay to the shopkeeper, was unimaginable, because it is a service that you were receiving, and there would be a cost attached to home delivery of the products. But today you have options where an Amazon or a Flipkart or any e-commerce site might provide you a product at a lesser price than the market and make it delivered at your doorstep. So what it shows is that today companies are devising their own strategies, their own innovations in the area of production, logistics, supply chain, distribution, and so on, with the inclusion of technology in such a way that the products are more conveniently made available to the consumer. So if we talk about the new concept, it is the 4 Cs that we talk about, and all this evolution and further, if I talk about further improvements to these ideas, they've all been built on the foundation of economics and the basic questions of what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to. Right. So when we talked about these 3 fundamental questions or the central problems, we talked about what, how, and for whom to produce. And I said that these, in a way, address a lot of answers to questions related to consumer behavior, understanding demand, understanding production and the cost aspects, and then understanding the market structures. What you see on your screen now is a general comprehensive view of a simplified comprehensive view of the subject of managerial economics, the way your syllabus is seen with different units. So if we see, it all starts, and we've talked about this in the past, that what are the objectives of the firm. So if we talk about this aspect, we are talking here about the objectives of the firm, which is mostly related to the theories of the firm. So depending on which stage of the product life cycle is the product at, or whether the firm is entering the market as a new firm, or it has a product already existing in the market and try to expand or its market size, or it is trying to improve its goodwill over a period of time, or is the firm trying to minimize its cost or maximize its wealth. At different stages, there could be different objectives that a firm may have. So the primary objective of firm, as we have discussed, is value creation. And when we say value creation, it talks about shared value, which means that creating value for the customers in terms of the utility, and creating an economic value to the firm in terms of obviously the revenue and the profits. Along with this, a firm might also try to have objectives in place like market entry, market penetration, market expansion, market capitalization, wealth maximization, goodwill maximization, and so many other objectives. So all that is a part of the theories of the firm, that profit may not just be the only objective of a business entity. And then when we talked about what to produce and demand analysis, we were actually talking about consumer behavior and the topics related to demand analysis, which talks about demand forecasting. It talks about understanding the concepts of demand and supply, understanding how what is the demand function, what are the factors that affect demand, and a lot of decisions related to estimation of the demand in the market, and understanding the segment that you would like to cater with your product. Then we move on to how to produce, and it answers questions related to production, how to optimize your production in order to maximize your output, and at the same time meet the supply requirements or maintain the production levels that can lead to a sustainable supply of your products. So production and supply analysis, and the other part of this deals with cost analysis. How do you minimize the cost or ensure that you are able to produce the quality, the output that you wish to produce at the targeted price point that you wish to sell your product. Then we talked about the final question of for whom to produce, that is the market, where is your target market, and who are the players in the market. And in light of these factors of the market, the nature of the market, the competition, how do you make your product aware to your target market? How do you reach out to your potential customer and make the product available to them? So and then charging the right price point to those set of customers in light of the nature of competition that exists. So market mechanism is the next part, that or the market structure or the market analysis, as we call it. All these are related to the third question, and it talks about the equilibrium of the firm. How does the firm operate in which different markets? If it's a perfect competition, what is the long run equilibrium of a firm? If it's an oligopoly system or a monopolistic system, what is the equilibrium level of the firm? What is the level of output they produce? What is the level of cost of the product that you see in the market? What is the level of advertising and product differentiation? And what level of profits do firms make in that sort of market structure? All that we study here. And then obviously the pricing decisions would also somewhere be affected by all these three factors. If you remember, we talked about customer, cost, and competition. So pricing and profit analysis greatly depends on all these three factors collectively, and not just on your cost analysis. So profits and profit analysis can be another part that you would cover in managerial economics. And then beyond this, there are a lot of macro factors which are external to the organization, which might also affect the decisions of the firms in order to sustain in the market and ensure that you have a sustained profitability and you're able to have perpetual existence in the market. So for that, you would also have to understand the dynamics of the external environment, the way the technology and the geo-economic and the geopolitical landscape is changing, the government policies, the inflationary pressures in the market, and a lot of other factors which will affect your capital budgeting and risk-related assessments, your investment decisions, and most importantly, the business decisions in light of the government policies and the way government decisions are affecting your different aspects of consumer behavior, your production, your cost aspects, and obviously your pricing decisions. And lastly, but not the least, the external factors would also involve environmental concerns, because today, besides globalization and technology, the corporate social responsibility, the reputation management, and the ESG and sustainability concerns are very important for organizations to take care of. And so these factors would also be a part of the overall macro dynamics and would be probably the last part of the formal flow of the subject. So managerial economics is basically a more applied area of economics, which is a blend of micro to a great extent and a bit of macro economic analysis, and wherein we try to understand how economics applies in business decision making and how does it hold relevance for managers and the leaders of the organizations to ensure that the companies have the right set of decisions and strategies, not only to survive but also to excel and sustain in a highly dynamic business environment. So all this is the flow of your subject of managerial economics, and this slide just tries to give you a comprehensive view of the whole subject or the flow of this subject, and somewhere it is related to the three primary questions that you studied about: what to produce, how, and for whom, with obviously objective of the firm being the first question, and then these three questions being addressed, and lastly the market evolving from not only the market or the market structure to the entire economy and the government policies and the international business environment. So that's all for this session. In the next session, we'll move on to the concept of utility and understand consumer behavior, demand, and various other things. That's all for now. And if there's any queries, I would like to take them offline or on a WhatsApp chat with all of you.